Thanks to Jeremy, that means I know that both teams are complete. Let's just do a quick introduction from the panel. Hi everyone, my name is Hans. I'll be your chair for this run. Pronouns will be they them, but as per usual, just refer as the panel as collective. Now I'll let my panel introduce themselves as well as a quick roll call, starting with Anu.
Hi, Anam, she, her pronouns. Good luck.
I think the next is Mahat,
Hello, Mahad, date and pronouns, please. Good luck.
and then Sarah,
Hi, I'm Sarah. She, her pronouns. Thanks.
and lastly Fudge.
Hi, I'm Vansh. He, him pronouns. Good luck for the round.
Awesome. I think that means all teamers complete as well as the judges. As per usual, use your own timer. I will help timing with 1 minute, 7 minute, as well as 8 minute. Per usual, 8 minute 15 is the maximum. I think you guys know the rest of reminder. So I hope PI preference also being out first before you start your own speeches as well as your pronouns tips if there's any. Let's just start a debate under motion about altruistic minded graduate earn to give model instead of maximize social goods. Call upon first option speaker to start the debate. Here.
Just want to check that I'm audible and visible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, perfect. I'll begin my timer with my first word. On op, Team Scotland traps you. It traps you into contending with the failures of the world of altruism. It traps you into failing the aspects of all capitalist narratives. Team UAE frees you. It's so proud to propose. I'm going to give you two substantives here. First on altruistic fulfillment, second on personal fulfillment. But before I move on, I'm going to do some framing. So what do I actually care about as a university graduate then who has an altruistic mindset? First is satisfaction. The fruits of my altruistic labor are making a difference in people's lives. I care that I'm actually making an impact with all of my altruism. Second, I also care about personal fulfillment. Any altruistic person does not exclusively only think about altruism. They have several other narratives that they have to fulfill in their life. What does this look like? Money. I'm a university graduate. I still want to make some good money so that I know my skills of going to university, my hard work, the amount my parents paid or the amount that I took out as a loan actually go into something and become something. Second, I want to make a house, for example. I want to be able to bring up a family. I want to have a good social status in life. I want to be able to live a comfortable life. All of these things are things that I actually care about alongside my altruism. So why is this important then? Because number one, my parents care about this. They care about their return on investment for my university education. I care about this because I care about my social standing. If I took out a loan, I want to make sure I can actually pay that back rather than being stressed about the debt for my whole life. I care about how my friends feel. I'm graduating with people in university. I want to know that I also made something of myself while my friends also go on to do great things. Now moving on to my first argument then on why we gain satisfaction. Op will tell you they derive satisfaction from the fact that the job itself gives them satisfaction, but we will tell you why this is not true. It is an illusionary concept. It is something we feel and not something you can actually measure. So there's two ways we will break this down then. Firstly, you become disillusioned with the altruism on their side of the house. Why? Because of the process. An important burden here is that most jobs are incredibly difficult to work in. For example, there's office politics. I'm stressed about what's actually going to happen, whether I'm going to get a promotion, whether I'm going to get fired tomorrow because there's too many people all of a sudden and we don't have enough funding, and so on. There's always going to be office politics. Secondly, I'm going to be stressed about the corporate job. A 9 to 5 is not easy. It's something so difficult. It's a repetitive job. You go in, you wake up at the same time, you do your job, you have the same routine at night. It is stressful. The things that happen in an office job are stressful. All of these things cloud my opinion and don't help me make it altruistic. On either side, if you're working a job, you end up not liking it because of the arbitrary things that happen where you are working. On their side, if you're working the social entrepreneur, if you're becoming a social entrepreneur, for example, you struggle for funding, and very few investors actually want to give interest into your thing because the market is so diluted. There's so many people who are actually there who ask for the same thing, and therefore it's so hard to get funding. All of this clouds my opinion. It makes altruism so hard. The fact that I may not even feel altruistic after I do something that is so altruistic. Okay, so you actually have to fight for it. What is the implication of this then? The altruism that I associate with my job becomes inherently less meaningful when the memories of that altruism are clouded by things like office politics, copious amounts of high pressure, and constant squabbling. Therefore, I'm likely to be dissatisfied with my altruism on opposition side. So what does this look like on our side of the house then? You are likely to work in a job with the same amounts of corporate pressure. Yes, we agree there's corporate pressure on our side of the house, but with higher pay because markets value more non-social jobs more. That there's more demand for it, there's less supply for it because I have university skills, which not everyone has. The difference, however, is that you donate to charity. You feel an active sacrifice that you're making when you donate, say, 10% of your earnings, which is a significant amount, we think, to cost-effective charity. This feeling of sacrifice is certain and inherently meaningful because you already feel as though you have done something great and important, and you've made that sacrifice. You've gone out of your way. I'll take you later. This is disassociated with your actual job, so none of it is clouded, and you feel the full altruism of what you're actually giving to. It's not clouded. You actually feel what you're doing. The impact of our altruism then is that you will see the impact. You see things through videos, pictures, evidence, or you even get to meet the person. Why? Because these charities have an active incentive to do so because they want to retain my donation. If they want to retain it, they will make sure I see what's happening. I see the physical impact, and therefore I see all of this happening. On weighing then here, we get the certain and direct altruistic satisfaction, where they have to actually derive it, if they can even derive it, from their clouded memory and judgment of such a high pressure environment, which is on both sides. But on our side, we're going out of our way, we feel the altruism, we do a greater sacrifice, and therefore we get more of that satisfaction. Like I explained to you in the definition, we get that illusionary feeling of satisfaction. So we want to illustrate a preemptive claim here by the means of, I'll take you later, of confirmation bias. So even if I am not sure if my sacrifice has yielded results, it is very easy for me to also persuade myself that it resulted in a positive outcome because of the fact that I've actually given something, I've taken out my time. Second strand on this argument then is that I have a diversified impact. As most nonprofits speak to niche issues, as there is need for differentiation to obtain government funding, the same applies to social entrepreneurship. Even if you're working in a large nonprofit, you're likely to be working in a niche issue. You're likely to be trapped in that specialization because that's how resumes work. If I want to move to another job, I'm trapped in that same specialization. I cannot go to a different issue of charity. Therefore, it is impossible that the issue I care about as a college graduate will actually be the only issue I care about because it's circumstantial, it's based on situation, and therefore on their side, they can only actually help one organization or one actual charity. On our side, we gain loads of charities. We can help all of the things that we actually want to help. Before I move on to my second argument, I'll take a POI very quickly.
When are you going to feel satisfied? When you chuck money at a problem once a month, or when you actually put effort into solving an issue?
No, I'm going to feel satisfied when I put money into something because number one, I see what's actually happening. These organizations give me and proof of what I've done. Second, I've gone out of my way further after my stressful job. I've gone out of the way to actually make another sacrifice and give something back. That's a more altruistic feeling on our side of the house. Second, on personal fulfillment then. The thesis for this is simple. No college graduate exists in an altruistic bubble. There are other societal narratives, like I told you at the beginning, that you are compelled to appeal to. For example, this looks like gaining money, being famous, or even my parents giving me money for my university education. My dad just calculated it was like $360,000. That's an incredible amount of money. I want to be able to give a return on my investment, number one, to my parents, and second, so I can make something of myself because I paid so much money for that actual job. Okay, if I want to do that, then I actually need to feel that personal fulfillment. How do we feel a more personal fulfillment on our side of the house? Number one, with getting a job in the corporate corporate world, it is known that people change jobs every few years. And therefore, to climb up the ladder, to go to more jobs, it's more easier for me to actually get a job after having a university degree if I go into something which is like a consultant, or if I go into investment banking after my university degree. I'm able to switch jobs. I'm actually able to get a job and get that personal fulfillment. Second, on actually earning more. If I become a consultant after my Wharton graduate, I'm able to actually gain, for example, a base of 100K. On the other hand, if I go into a nonprofit, I'm going to get max 60K, which is almost half. It's nothing. I'm not able to get personal fulfillment from that. Second, I can also get networking. My whole Wharton alumni network is there for me to actually network with other people to gain personal fulfillment. If I don't make that into use, I'm not actually gaining any personal fulfillment. I'm actually wasting all the resources I was given. For all of those reasons, we have two paths to victory, two very clear paths, and for all of those reasons, I'm so proud to propose. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for first proposition speaker for the fine speech. To open the case from team opposition, option first speaker, floor is yours. You're here.
Hello. Can I check I'm audible and visible okay?
Yes, you are.
Perfect. Okay, I'll take my POIs verbally and she, her pronouns, please. I won't look at the chat, so I won't see them if you put them there. Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Go. The effective altruism movement proposed by proposition, championed by criminals like Sam Bankman-Fried, has succeeded only in turning altruistically minded graduates into corporate drones. We stand for active change. So proud to propose. My rebuttal will be integrated throughout, so let's just jump into our first argument. Why should the student not prioritise the accumulation of funds in order to help movements? The thesis of this claim is that prioritising funding alone does not allow this graduate to actually enact the change that would be the most beneficial to them, insofar as proving that they are altruistically minded means that they want and desire the most change. Why is money then not effective at creating an altruistic end? This is for two reasons. Firstly, by Prop's own admission, it takes a long time to succeed in the kind of corporate high-paying careers that they are characterising. This is in of itself for two reasons. A is because career progression takes time. It takes you time to work up from being a lowly college graduate into the high-paying career where you feel justified in sacrificing 10% of your income. But B, there's a significant level of costs associated with these high-paying jobs. For example, you may have had to move to a city and are now paying rent in an expensive city apartment, or you may have had to take part in a significant amount of training, which in and of itself is costing you money. This means that for the early part of your career, you are having to spend almost all of the money that you are making from this career back into yourself in order to justify the loans and the funding that you took out in order to be able to afford this career in the first place. Second reason why money is not effective at creating an altruistic end is that it is simply easier to get money than it is to get volunteers. Therefore, prioritizing being able to volunteer in non-profit organizations or work in non-profit organizations is the most actively beneficial thing. Let's just note here, loads of people will donate money to charitable organizations. Very few will actually roll up their sleeves and get stuck in to actually help on the ground. This just proves that we are able to get, under our side of the house, the most meaningful change to these organizations insofar as donations of donations from money is much more useful insofar as it is much more frequent under their side of the house. Therefore, pursuing money is not the best way for this actor to make change in the world, and therefore we have to pursue being part of charitable organisations and volunteering our time rather than our money in order to actually create a benefit. Second argument then, on why are new graduates of this sort so useful to charities and charitable organisations? The thesis of this claim is that these organisations lack support and graduates are uniquely good at fulfilling these posts which are currently sitting empty. What sectors then do we think we're talking about here when we propose that these graduates go into movements which enable them to actually help rather than follow an earn to give model? This is 4 things. Firstly, we propose them going into the public healthcare sphere rather than the private healthcare sphere if they are a doctor. Secondly, we encourage them to go into large charitable organisations. For example, you use your law degree not to become a large advocate, but instead to work for Greenpeace. Thirdly, you work for public defence organisations. For example, you work as a defence lawyer in the state, in providing legal counsel to people who are unable to offer it themselves. But fourthly, you are able to engage in local level charities, for example, sacrificing time at the weekend. Note something, this is not proposition are able to access, insofar as the corporate high-paying jobs that they advocate for necessarily take up so much of your time and energy that accessing this kind of volunteer work at the weekends or out with the hours of your job is necessarily impossible for them. Note all of the traits of graduates graduates that they themselves tell you mean that they are uniquely good candidates for accessing these charitable positions. They are people who have high level of skills in particular and specialized industries. They have good organizational skills, good people skills, good contacts. All of this means they're incredibly useful people to be involved in these charitable organizations. We must also note that the fact that most graduates who exit these universities are not altruistically minded. Instead, they will choose to go into the high-paying jobs the proposition characterized. This means that there is a huge lack of people doing the jobs which are necessary in these charitable organizations because they do, as we are willing to admit, pay less for these individuals. It must be noted, though, the proposition cannot push onto us a burden of defending someone working themselves into the ground for no money and not being able to afford any of their basic necessities. We do think that people have a calculation here, but what we think this can look like is you taking a lower-paying job in a defense organization, but knowing that this means that you have more time to spend working for like a charitable organization in your local area, and we think that this is the calculation that you make. They try to tell you that the proximity that you as an individual are to the change that you are enacting is beneficial insofar as it motivates you to create altruism in the future, but also makes you feel better about your situation in the present. And they try and tell you in response to a POI that getting a charitable written report about what your money did is equivalent to literally seeing the change that you are doing. We just think this is ridiculous, panel. Getting a bit of paper that says we used your money and we did X, Y, and Z when you don't even know if that is necessarily true or necessarily the impact that that has had in the long term is just completely different to being able to see someone across the courtroom when you are doing a pro bono case and see the look in their eyes as they realise that you are offering them legal counsel, which they so desperately need to get through this intimidating court case. That is a much more proximate benefit that you are experiencing that makes you feel so much better about the altruism that you are providing. It just enables you to feel motivated to pursue altruism in the future. If you win on who gets the most proximity to the benefit, that is a clear win. How then do we benefit charities and organisations? This is for two reasons. Firstly, as already characterised, graduates have unique skills which enable them to fill these positions which have for too long sat unfulfilled. But secondly, these individuals have a great degree of contacts. For example, they have met people in their university education who they can now call upon to help with things like charitable fundraising events or organisations within that charitable venture, which encourage people to donate and encourage awareness of the issue that that charity is trying to solve. For these reasons, we think the graduates are uniquely, incredibly good and incredibly skilled at fulfilling the voids left in these valuable public services and should therefore prioritise this over anything else. Before I move on to my last argument, I'll take that point.
You speak of pro bono cases. In every pro bono case, there is a winner and a loser. What happens if you're the loser?
Why does that matter to the interests of this graduate? This graduate cares about providing an altruistic benefit. And if that means providing a benefit just by giving legal counsel to an individual who couldn't previously afford it, that pro bono lawyer does not have any incentive to prove why one person is or isn't guilty. It's about doing the job in the first place that otherwise wouldn't be done. Last argument then, why high-paying workplaces are inherently bad for altruism. They accept that corporations are bad. What we will do in this argument is explain why it is uniquely the high-paying companies that people and graduates on their side are encouraged to pursue, which are bad for the altruistic movement. The thesis of this claim is that inherently high-paying companies are exploitative, and working for these organizations is counter to the incentives of an altruistically minded college graduate. Why then can you never be truly altruistic when working for high-paying industries? We have a number of reasons here. Firstly, high-value companies are inherently bad. This is for three reasons. A, they might make contributions to global harms. For example, they are a huge multinational corporation who operate in the manufacturing industry and are therefore impacting climate change. B, they defend harmful actions. For example, large law firms which defend things like oil spills on an industrial scale because that is how they bring in the most money for their company. But C, they contribute to widening inequality. For example, you work in the private healthcare sphere, and that genuinely means that there are fewer doctors to work in the public healthcare sphere, meaning you are widening wealth inequalities within your society. Second reason why these companies can never be truly altruistic is because you are heavily influenced by those around you. Notice, this is something they concede when they tell you that you care severely about being able to match yourself to the other graduates who graduated in your cohort and can compare yourself and see who has achieved more. You are influenced by those around you. This is something they accept. This means that other people are encouraging you to drop your altruistic tendencies, to spend money on things like designer clothes and expensive holidays in order to fit in with the group. This means doing things like not supporting tax rises because you now have a high taxable income and you regret the idea that this money will be taken away from you. Third reason why they are harmful is because you are pushed to climb the corporate ladder. This means that you are willing to sacrifice donations in the present in order to climb the corporate ladder in order to access more money in the future, which you then believe that you can donate. Notice, this is literally what happened with Sam Bankman-Fried and Alameda Research, where this company collapsed because he was so desperate to hide his losses in order to maximize profits and create the most change in the future that he just forgot about the process of donating in the here and the now. We think this is extremely important. Note by the time that you get to the higher paying level of these jobs that you need in order to be able to affect an altruistic benefit, you have already spent a huge amount of time in these industries and have already been corrupted by the views of others. This is something we explained to you previously. You also are only able to choose to donate to charities which are actively not calling out your harmful company's actions. Therefore, you are very selective on which charities you donate to and are likely not donating to the ones that are doing the most good in society, because we stand for active benefits and active benefits to this individual graduate. So proud to oppose.
Okay, thank you so much, first option speaker, for your fine speech to extend case from proposition. Proposition second speaker, floor is yours. Here.
Clearly, the people on Team Scotland have a much better moral compass than we do and are just much better people than we are. Because, panel, as future college graduates, we think it's unlikely that we will derive our value and our self-perception from the success of an organization. As future college graduates, we think it is immensely likely that we will care about being marketable to dates, to jobs, and allowing our parents to believe, per their high standards in most countries in the world, that they invested in a useful education. We think they misunderstand what this motion is actually about. It may be about pro bono lawyers, but pro bono lawyers tend to lose, and we'll talk about why that's the case. How do they actually squirrel the motion? This is a motion about wherein you maximize social good on their side of the house. If we were to take it at its absolute, which they do for some reason before we do, when they say effective altruism, that doesn't involve working as a public defense lawyer. That doesn't involve working in healthcare. It means using your skills as a public defense lawyer to perhaps consult for a charity. But we will buy that characterization because it probably makes it even easier for us to win. Because here's the thing, panel. Most pro bono jobs are immensely difficult and you barely ever win against bloodthirsty corporations. Second, this is an actor debate. Most people are selfish human beings that derive their value not from organizational things. Most people operate on confirmation bias, something Zara gives you that they don't respond to. We will assume that this one individual that we're speaking about in this motion, not the organization, is not some benevolent, all-knowing, hyperactive individual with a moral compass. We will say they're a normal, average informed voter, and they have altruistic incentives that may weigh higher than other incentives. That doesn't mean those other incentives don't exist, and that doesn't mean they care about everything that is just mildly altruistic. We want to make this exceptionally clear. Who wins the clash then on altruistic satisfaction? We say jobs are immensely taxing. They are taxing on both sides of the house. Let's use this analogy of a pro bono lawyer. A pro bono lawyer has to work multiple hours a day simply because their law firm is understaffed. Their law firm is understaffed because there is a lack of demand for pro bono jobs and there's a lack of investment in pro bono firms. So you work much more than the average lawyer does. You do so for lower pay. You do so in an environment where other co-workers are also frustrated. So office politics are at an all-time high. It is immensely difficult to work this job. So even if we bite the bullet and assume that you win all your pro bono cases, the memories of this altruism, if that's what you want to call it, are clouded by these things. It becomes then a very taxing kind of altruism and one you just can't derive that much meaning from because of the fact that you just hate the way you got there. You derive your value from the output of your job too, but you derive your dissatisfaction from all the other elements of the job. That's the crucial difference. On our side, when you make a sacrifice, an active sacrifice of your income, 10% of your income, which isn't deferred, by the way, they can't get away with scribbling that. No, thank you. That is satisfaction you get the moment you make that sacrifice. That is satisfaction disassociated with corporate perils of the work life. We think then they also exaggerate the multitude of their impacts. In most pro bono law cases, the lawyer loses. Even if you're fighting for a rape victim, which is probably the most noble thing you can do as a pro bono lawyer, you have to see a corporation genuinely lie to people about how that rape victim is a gaslighter, genuinely lie and bring up some criminal record from the past. And you won't be able to fight them because they have so much more money than you do. It's impossible to actually win a lot of these cases, especially the ones that you do derive altruistic impact for. This is true if you're a doctor, and it's especially true if you're working as a social entrepreneur or in a charity, stuff that's actually outlined in this debate. We
Point of
say
information.
results are somewhat guaranteed. No, thank you. We say because you donate to a charity that is inherently cost effective, you know for certain that some portion of their money is being allocated and funneled to good things. Just knowing or having epistemic access is enough. But we tell you, and they reduce our analysis to text messages. No, you probably get to meet the person whose life you changed. You probably get to watch a video testimony. That stuff would make anyone cry, man. I'm not sure why you wouldn't actually value that. They seem to reduce human emotions to something that you need to be on the ground for a specific niche issue to actually get something. No. Plus, most people have confirmation bias. Even if the charity you're donating to is ineffective, which it's not, you donated a lot of money to that charity. You genuinely want to believe that it was for good. So you will get that satisfaction, irrespective of what they say.
Information.
What they say. In a moment. We say then you also get more diversified impact because you get to appeal to a lot of causes rather than just a niche cause that you're trapped into on their side of the house. Again, they ignore this. The analysis here was simple, and I will repeat it so their second speaker responds. They've got plenty to respond to, by the way. The second speaker analysis that they have to respond to is just that on their side of the house, you are trapped into working for the same issue. If you're a social entrepreneur, you have to work in that issue. Even if you're a pro bono lawyer, you have some specialization that even if you leave the job, you have to retain that specialization to get a new one. You're trapped with one issue, and issues you care about change. They change circumstantially. They change as you change morally. They change as you change personally. We don't want to give or forego that. On our side, you earn a hefty amount of money, and you can donate to whatever charity you want at whatever period of time. Even if it's deferred, you're still being satisfied and you're still being altruistic. You still feel as though you're altruistic. Most people will not interact with Team Scotland and so will not know that their altruism is ineffective. We think then, they talk a lot about exploitation. In a moment, we say, sure, you work for an exploitative organization on your side. Absolutely, on our side, absolutely correct. Difference is, you may work for an exploitative organization on yours too. Most charities and most pro bono law firms are also corrupt. They also embezzle money. They also do a lot of poor things to poor people when they mismanage cases. But how far are we going to push this principle? I'll talk about that, but before that, I'll take a POI.
Why do people on your side actually choose to donate when the very same office politics that you characterize makes them care more about achieving material goals than sticking to their previously held altruistic beliefs?
Here's the difference. You will always donate 10% of your, as an altruistic minded person, of your income, the same way you just donate 10% of fixed deposits, right? Like you will get the same value out of this than you would, like, say, have seen that money compound a little bit. When we say capitalist narratives, we're talking about like minimum thresholds here. We're not even saying you have to be like Elon Musk. We're just saying you just have to be able to appeal to the narrative set by your family. I'm not sure. I think you're taking it too far. We're talking about working for exploitative firms. I'm not sure how far you're going to take this principle. On both sides of the world, people will probably buy an iPhone. Both sides of the world, people will probably shop from Shein. In both cases, you like condone exploitation. You cannot push this principle. At best, it's somewhat symmetric. You win slightly, marginally. Who cares? Second, then, on the idea of personal satisfaction. Their failure to respond to this is damning to their case because the vast majority of your life is not dictated by altruistic mindedness. Zara proves to you substantially that every single bit of your life is determined by the job you work in because society has a capitalist environment that induces these narratives. We are so much better at winning in every other aspect of life that even if they win on altruism, we say this college graduate probably wants to be holistic. We win on so much, they must respond. So proud to propose.
Thank you, second proposition speaker, for your fine speech. To extend it from opposition, second opposition speaker, floor is yours. Here.
Can everyone see and hear me okay?
Yep.
Right. Hello, I'm Sophie, second speaker, pronouns she, they, please. And for me, POIs in the chat. Okay, I'll start in 3, 2, 1. It boggles the mind that a team could take a debate between a earn to give model and a model about maximizing social good and somehow make it about making your parents proud. This is clearly one where the graduate is making a decision based on altruism, given that is the distinction and the intention of both of the options. We have to assume then that that is their primary incentive in this round. But listen, I'm going to prove why they're going to be more satisfied on our side anyway. Okay, let's talk first about doing net good and why this matters in the round. We gave you a couple of mechanisms as to why overall they're not doing the best forms of good. The first is that the corporate ladder is a place in which it is difficult to make a large amount of money or it takes a really long time. This is a mitigatory response, but the point is here to minimize the delta that they're ever going to get. Remember that for later panel. They don't respond to this. The point that this means is we probably think this is a scenario where you're waiting a very long time before you can make a substantial donation in the first place, or it's one where you like missed the internship 3 years running and so it's very difficult. 2, that we make an active difference in charities. They give you a couple of responses to this. The first is to say that there are exploitative charities in the world. I just want to point out the absolute glaring contradiction in their case, because under their world, they say you donate to really cost-effective charities, and then they come to you and they show the difference that you're making because you only pick charities that are cost-effective. And under our side, charities are corrupt and exploitative. If there are cost-effective charities, go and work for them. That's what's happening under our side of the house. If you think you're exploitative, you're donating to bad ones. It's symmetric. We think there are excellent cost-effective charities, the ones that they're donating for, and that's what we're going to channel our work as someone who's highly in demand, as a skilled graduate. Why do we think then that we make a difference? We give you a plethora of reasons as to why there are many skills that a graduate is able to bring. They tell you what, like pro bono lawyers lose a bit because like they have less money. Sure, but you lose doing something good, more weighing on that later. But crucially, we just think you're able to bring like delta in things like improving the organization of that charity or working on the ground on the weekends if that's not your primary job as well. There are a bunch of ways that you're actually going to add to creating this difference in the first place. You're going to add to the net benefit that you're bringing to the world, even if you think it's difficult for you to win in those scenarios. But additionally, finally, we tell you that they're working in exploitative environments. The way then, panel, this changes the analysis is even if you think 10 years down the line, they make $500,000 worth of donations, if they're doing $300,000 worth of damage in that year, that means the difference that they're getting here is very minimal and much, much less than what we're doing by working day in, day out to improve their scenario. Their response to this is to try and wash it out. The first is by saying everything else is exploitative. See my response as to why this is attention. And also just blatantly untrue that like corporations which are polluting oil are not as corrupt as like Greenpeace. That's obviously like a contradiction and not true in their world. But additionally, they tell you it's not a big deal because you buy from Shein too. Listen, I think an altruistic graduate probably does try to make the most ethical choices they can in the rest of their life. They probably do try to maximize ethicality and don't buy from places like Shein. But like, evidently, this is not the end point here, right? The point is, if you are a lawyer who opts into a corporation and you defend that corporation in court for the oil spill, well, there is money coming out your back pocket for an environmental charity. That is evidently a contradiction in your scenario. What that means is you're doing active damage. A couple of points of weighing whether this is damaging to you. The first is that this is probably something which brings you like, but the people are not fundamentally utilitarian, right? This is why the trolley problem is a question for us. We view act of commission as incredibly bad, even if we think there is a utilitarian net benefit here. This means that the act of committing bad is something that's contradictory to the principles of altruism that they hold so dearly. But additionally here, we have flagged the high level of guilt that you just have to feel in those scenarios where you actively know that these are issues you care about very deeply. You have to lie in bed at night and think about the victims which you guarantee they never got a payout for. That's what they have to defend in their world if they're willing to rise up in the cutthroat corporate environment. In their very worst case scenario, they're making money for executives who lobby companies to exploit the poor. What that means is these types of guilt that is altruistic in chat, please, the types of risks altruistic graduate is taking is incredibly dangerous. What we therefore think that means is that, and not only this, but add in Mia's analysis that you lose your altruistic tendencies as you go, that you endlessly justify worse and worse actions, meaning that in the end you are always going to commit net harm. What that means is it's only under our side that can you fight for things like doing good. But even if you do a bit of net good under either side, at least under our side, you don't carry the overwhelming guilt that you hurt the people you were trying to protect. That one day walking to KPMG in your gilet, you realize you've become everything that you hated in your graduate days. But let's go on to talk about things like satisfaction. They try and squirrel the altruistic point into something about why you get satisfaction. Notice, they try and weigh this by saying you see the proximity of your donations because some will show you pictures of the people that you fed. Panel, if you care about proximity, evidently we win this because you're in the charities, you're on the ground doing the work. So if you want to see the people that charities help, that's where you're getting the satisfaction from our side. Additionally, they talk to you about things like sacrifice. So we say that even if this is a hard job to do, we can flip that under our side. It is because of that sacrifice that the good things that you do are incredibly satisfying. That when you see that charity get those wins that they get through changing policy or even just feeding 10 more people, or you working in marketing and driving a thing that brings in the most donations that you've ever had, that is deeply satisfying because of the sacrifice you put in, and it's worth it. But let's talk about why, if they wanted to debate this on like what's a nicer environment to work in, I'm happy to say that McKinsey is horrific. Here's some reasons why. One, it's incredibly competitive and cutthroat. This is because it's majorly saturated. We've already characterized you. That means you're unable to make any friends. You're constantly working literally overnight to try and get the delta in being the intern who wrote the best like brief on this case. Second, it's money with no other value of success. Notice how values are circular. So if you go into a place which prioritizes money, it will only become more and more entrenched over time. What that means is there's no other mechanisms for you to provide success. If you start to have a mental health breakdown in that corporate environment, making money is your only metric for success, and you have no way of breaking out of that. But finally, there's just a lack of support because no one cares about other principles. I think if you work in an environment where people's primary job is caring about others and being altruistic as exists in a social entrepreneurship, you're much more likely to have like better team building, care about people's mental health. This is partly because you want to retain people because you have fewer people in the industry, but also because you're around a bunch of empathetic people who care about you. So if you're all having stress and burnout, you literally talk to each other, where that never happens in a corporate environment where they're happy to see you fall and quit because you burn out. Corporate environments are just incredibly cutthroat, particularly when you feel that you need to make money or your parents are disappointed in you, which is the frame which they try and bring under their side. What this means is it's just incredibly detrimental to work in a corporate environment. So even if it's hard under our side as well, at least you get support from other people, support for your mental health, and you know that you're not actively funding the people that you always hated in your life. POI.
When I work at KPMG, I am one of a million employees causing a net harm. When I work as a pro bono lawyer, I have to be the one to convince a rape victim to take a lousy settlement because I couldn't win her the case. Which one is less satisfying?
I think it's always better to be the one who's trying to do the good in the world, because ultimately you know that if you failed doing something valiant. That's why we talk about things like people like martyrs who died, at least they died doing something that was good and that they love. But ultimately, if you're somewhere in KPMG, you're just part of the machine. That's even worse. You have no impact on the world. You're just someone who's funding the bad machine. You're the person you always hated, and you're always going to feel guilty for that. Why can you still get satisfaction in our jobs beyond things that care about money? The first is, I'm going to hope, fingers crossed, that my parents love me a bit more than the money they put into my education. And what that means is they're going to, if I tell them that I care about things like altruism, they're going to see the satisfaction I get from doing good, and they're going to love me for doing that in those scenarios. But additionally, secondly, there are other ways to get things like professional satisfaction beyond the gaining of money, because you can still climb some kind of ladder in a charity and become like the leader of that branch that works in your local area, or become more influential, or pitch an idea which becomes a drive and you see that satisfaction. So there's still abilities to have ideas and bring ideas to the table which are immensely satisfying, even if you think this is something about like gaining influence. They tell you finally then this like diversity idea, that you diversify the types of places that you donate to. One, you can do this in a career of 40 years. You can work on different issues. If you're a lawyer, you can work in environmental law in different areas, or you can go on to work in other areas of law. But additionally, okay, they make literally no delta under their side because they give what, £100 a month to loads of different charities and make zero impact. And then the return and pictures of the work that you do under their side is like a picture of one bowl of rice that you bought for someone and one like bit of a wind turbine that you contributed to. It's no delta. We'd much rather you go deep and you get satisfaction from what you do. This is someone who is guilt-free, who is satisfied, who works doing what they love or they die trying. We are so proud to oppose.
Thank you, second opposition speaker, for your fine speech. To give the last substantive from proposition, third proposition speaker, flourishers. Yeah.
Yeah, why are we waiting for them? Hopefully I'm audible and visible.
Yes, you are.
Just no worries. In a world where ignorance is bliss, panel, Team Scotland first rips off the blindfold that you have over your eyes. They then force your eyelids open and make you see the world. But to add to it even more, they light up the entire world with the most beautiful Instagram lighting possible and make sure that you cannot turn away. They strip you of your ignorance. They strip you of the delusion that we get you on our side of the house. We tell you that on our side of the house, the altruistic satisfaction we get may be deluded. We may be the most evil people in the world. But because of that delusion, we feel that we are the best people in the world, panel. We win on that. 2 key points of extraneous rebuttal before I move on to clashes. First, panel, on Scotland's push that like we can't make money. Note that we said something very simple, that when you join a charitable org, it is a lot harder to climb the corporate ladder there. Why is that? It's because it's a lot more reliant on experience than it is on reputation and contacts, 2 things that you actively gain in a reputable university. But why does this change in the corporate world, panel? Because simply put, the corporate world is so dependent on contacts, and it's so dependent on your reputation, right? Fundamentally, they are a lot more likely to give a Harvard graduate. They're far more likely to give like the Harvard graduate a promotion in the corporate world than they are the graduate of like some random state school. But even if we don't buy this analysis, even if we say that the corporate ladder is hell to climb on both sides, panel, note that when my starting salary is 100,000, climbing is not nearly as important as when it's only 60,000. Note that on our side, because you start off at a much higher level, because when you start off at like 10% of your salary being $10,000 worth of donations, we tell you fundamentally that even if you credit them on this argument, climbing is still not nearly as important. Second thing then that I want to deal with externally is this idea that they give you literally 7 minutes and 40 seconds in the second after Aryan actively tells them to respond to it. They tell you that they can diversify on their side of the house. We say, sure, let's say that like a pro bono lawyer can now take 15 different types of cases. That just isn't the case, panel. Because when I like specialize in property law, I deal in property cases, right? I cannot tomorrow go and start defending a rape victim or defending like
information.
murder, right? Fundamentally, panel, we tell you that you do have to specialize, especially in charities. But note here that I want to add one more bit of analysis. I want to point out to you, panel, that you are a lot less likely to get hired when you choose not to specify, when you choose not to specialize, because that's what companies often look for. First clash then on like altruistic satisfaction. I have a few questions here to ask, okay? First, where do we think we have more impact? We say 2 things. 1, it is easier to support whatever cause we want on our side of the house. That is to say, diversification is possible. Second, we point out that we can have more raw financial impact in terms of value given to people on the ground. What do they respond, panel? They respond this idea first of like somehow they getting exclusive forms of impact because no one fills these jobs. We think this is very unlikely because pro bono law firms still do have jobs. They don't actually tell you why these jobs go unfilled. But even if they did, panel, I want to point out, sorry, I want to point out here, I'll take you later, by the way, that like this exclusivity analysis just doesn't make sense, right? It's an assertion from them. But secondly, they tell you that like your work is counterintuitive. One very quick response here, 5 slightly later. We say, simply put, I'm able to compensate, right? I can still donate to like a law firm that does pro bono law, that does like pro bono law cases. But note, panel, that I want to weigh this idea of flexibility right now. I want to tell you, panel, that flexibility is a need of the hour. We say fundamentally that the most like important charitable issues fundamentally change over time, right? Note that on their side of the house, you are stuck forever dealing with like property cases and property theft if you're a pro bono lawyer. On our side of the house, one day you can be dealing and supporting like kids who are dying in South Sudan. The next day you can be supporting people in Ukraine. This is a benefit they cannot access, and they definitely cannot access it after just asserting that they can. Second question then, where do we feel better about our impact? Note that I want to weigh this upfront. We tell you fundamentally that people are not inherently rational creatures. People often are deluded. There's this idea of false consciousness that fundamentally I cannot fully perceive the world for exactly what it is. We tell you a few simple things. We tell you, 1, bigger sacrifices are better on our side of the house. Note that when like Scotland's first speaker says that like you spend 80% of your income on progressing your career, this and that, we tell you that then when you spend 10% of it on charity, because you're making so much larger of a sacrifice for the rest of your career, and because like that 10% is so valuable to you, you feel a lot better when you donate that 10%, right? You are making a massive sacrifice when you donate that 10%. You feel a lot more satisfied on our side of the house. But note, panel, that like we give you this idea of pro bono lawyers losing the case. They barely respond to it, but like let me tell you why this is so bad. Because on their side of the house, people are frustrated when they lose that case. They are disappointed, and they have to live with the fear and like sadness of knowing that they just sent a rape victim to like not be properly compensated, or like they just sent someone to jail or something like that, right? Note, panel, that on our side of the house, you are far less likely to have those worst kinds of dissatisfaction. Why? Because charity is always one like bank statement away or one like check away, right? We tell you fundamentally because you get a lot of the stuff that we tell you about in terms of like videos from victims and stuff like that. Finally, though, they push this idea of proximity being the same as satisfaction. No, not when you are proximal to the violations as well. Not when you are proximal to the CEO of your charity stealing 80% of the money that is supposed to go to the kids who are dying. Not when you are proximal to the people who are failed because they cannot afford a lawyer panel. You are also proximal to the harms. They have to concede that. And we tell you that you see the losses a lot more inherently. Lastly, in the splash panel, I want to deal with that idea on like this, on like my job being so detrimental. 5 responses. 1, you can actually compensate for this. I can donate for pro bono law, even if I support it. 2, I'm often not nearly as proximate as I am on that
Thanks for
side.
information.
Like when I work at Berkshire Hathaway, I'm probably working in like the finance department or something. I don't know the violations that legal department like deals with, right? 3rd, we tell you that we are one contributor, right? Whereas on their side of the house, when like quote unquote the jobs are empty, you fill every position. Note then that what this means for us in this debate is that, or like fourth response, we tell you that on their side of the house, there is an insane opportunity cost, right? This is the idea that when I specialize into something for the rest of my life, I cannot contribute to any other form of charity. 5th and finally, panel, we tell you that like satisfaction theories and literally all psychology suggests that like even if my job is really, really bad and doesn't agree with me, that makes me feel like I hate my job. Note that the analysis we give you on bigger sacrifices making you feel more satisfied means that when this happens, your job makes you feel so much worse. That's a much larger sacrifice. You just feel happier on our side of the house. Note, panel, that because of all of this, I think we've dealt with every push they give you on the Slash. So I want to deal with this idea of personal satisfaction. Note, panel, that we think that like college students are pretty idealistic, right? When you graduate out of college, you're like 21 years old. You dream about marrying a supermodel and like driving a Lambo, and at the same time, changing the world and alleviating poverty. Note, panel, that this is why personal satisfaction matters, because everyone in society tells you that there are other things. Everyone in society pushes the grand capitalistic scheme of make money, drive Lambo, marry supermodel. We tell you that like your parents tell you to do that. And note that we're not saying your parents don't love you, but they still ask, hey, Tanay, what are you doing? Oh, you're doing charity? Cool. By any chance, are you homeless? What? You're homeless? Oh, no, we hate you for that now. We paid for your college and now you're not repaying us. Note that we win on the Slash because all they do is weigh it down. So what did we tell you? We told you that the only way to truly conform to social narratives that are otherwise going to shatter you is to somewhat agree to them and somewhat conform to like the capitalistic structures of the world. They don't actually tell you why you can accomplish this on their side. I've proven to you why we weigh this. I've proven to you why we win the debate. So proud of the boss.
Okay, thank you so much, third option speaker, for your fine speech. To give the last substantive from opposition, third option speaker, floor is yours. Here.
Hi, can everyone see and hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Starting in 3, 2, 1. The motion reads, you're an altruistic individual. The veil of ignorance was already lifted. You already saw problems in society. You already saw that problems needed solving and that you needed to take action. Under proposition, they were never not aware. At the point at which they do not maximize utility, that is when you are not fulfilled. That is the most important thing in this round. And since they fail to help the most people, they are not fulfilled and do not fulfill the people's incentives. 2 clashes in this speech. First of all, on utility, and second of all, on satisfaction. First of all, on utility. We give you multiple ways in which you're more likely to fulfill certain goals in a charity under our side of the house at the point at which you participate in actual charities instead of just donating your money. We first of all tell you how they are unlikely to get a large delta in money under their side of the house because you're unlikely to succeed. But additionally, they contribute to many problems at the point at which they take part in corporations. Second of all, we tell you money can't solve a lot at the point at which they cannot suddenly find another 1,000 pro bono lawyers, but you can do that to yourself. But thirdly, say money is useless without skills and an effective charity. They want to talk about charities being not effective and charities being corrupt. That is the case when you're not personally there. If you as an individual with these unique skills are not able to contribute to that charity and help it run effectively, that is when that charity is not cost effective. Even if they get more money, we still prove that we get more utility. I think this is incredibly important because they never actually properly respond to this. They only tell you that, oh, charities are corrupt. So we already respond to this at the point to which, for the debate to work, the charities need to not be corrupt. But also, as an altruistic individual with information, you just choose the charity that is not corrupt. At that point, I think it is only under our side that we help the most people through charitable giving of your time rather than money. I want to weigh this incredibly highly in the debate. Because even if comes at the expense of personal fulfillment, that does not matter, because altruistic fulfillment is more important. The motion simply says so. At the point at which you're an altruistic individual, that is your priority. If you're just an average individual, you'd be coerced by all the narratives they tell you in society. But the fact is, you're not an ordinary individual. At the point at which you are altruistic, that is what you care about most. B, the harms are far more visceral. The harms of not having another £60,000 on top of your already £60,000 salary is maybe you can add a couple of bedrooms to your home, or you can go on that corporate holiday that everyone seems to be having fun on and going to nightclubs on. Quite frankly, that is not a visceral impact. Under our side, our impact is that you feel less guilt because you're not putting people into poverty. You feel more fulfilled because you're actually helping people out of that poverty. We both prevent people from feeling negative feelings and also help people feel positive ones by saving people. But C, on guarantee, I just think it is more likely you're able to make an impact in a charity than it is you're able to access absolute personal fulfillment under their side of the house. That is to say, the minute you step foot in that charity and give a minute of work, you are helping that charity do something. Under their side of the house, it takes a very long time to achieve any semblance of personal fulfillment, especially since the societal narratives that they set that metric off of are so unachievable. The perfect home, the perfect family, the perfect job is not something that exists in reality. I just don't think they're able to actually achieve the fulfillment in the first place. We are more likely to give fulfillment. What this means is they needed to prove why we do not achieve the greatest utility in terms of altruism for them to both win this clash and also win the clash on fulfillment. Let's now look at the clash on fulfillment. They give you a couple of things. And the first thing they say is that you're going to be incredibly disillusioned with your work under our side at the point of which you're like, oh, there's office politics and it's a big struggle. Two responses. First of all, Sophie already tells you how it's likely to be a positive environment within these charities at the point to which they're filled with altruistic people that care about others, but also likely to be relatively progressive, so buying into things such as well-being culture, and you're not going to be run into the ground. But second of all, we accept that it's difficult in some scenarios. We accept that it is hard work, but it is exactly that hard work that makes it worth it. It is the effort and struggle that you put in that makes the reward valuable. If you see people being helped by you, and you have done that, that is when you get the good feeling. Under proposition, you get sent a message, or you even visit this person that you apparently helped, but you do not feel much because you did not do anything. You chucked money at them and hoped that would solve the problem. You do not get reward or fulfillment under their side of the house. The second thing they try to tell you is that it is incredibly niche under our side of the house and we're not allowed to access a diverse impact. Two responses to this. First of all, I would actually say this is bad. Because if you're putting your money across a lot of different charities, you're not going to get much of a reward, i.e. you're only putting £1,000 into each individual charity. That is not going to help that is not going to create a large utilitarian impact, therefore you're not going to feel good. I think it is better that you devote all your time and see a big reward at the end of it under our side of the house. But second of all, even if it is still impactful to donate your money to lots of different charities under proposition side of the house, I just think the good feelings become watered down because you're constantly getting these messages, you're constantly meeting these people that you have done good. That is not as rewarding as when it is very personal, when it is individualized, and when you've actually done that effort. Therefore, I don't think they can claim that they help people through and by keeping it niche and by keeping it diverse and not niche. The third thing they tell you is that it's under their side that they prevent people from being clouded, that they make an active sacrifice. They give 3 reasons why they are more fulfilling. A, you're not clouded by the negative experiences of your charitable job. 2 responses. 1, again, I think it is the negative experiences that make the struggle that make the reward at the end positive. It is because you struggle that you feel fulfilled. Second thing they tell you is that there's an active sacrifice under their side of the house. 2 responses. 1, no, there is not. You're making £120,000 and you give 10%. At what stage is that an active sacrifice? At what stage is that making any sort of impact on your life? Because you're not sacrificing anything, you're not feeling anything good. But second of all, you're made to feel bad in the working environment that you work in under proposition. Because you're not surrounded by altruistic people, they say, oh, why are you donating 10% to charity? They literally concede this in their P3 when they tell you people are going to ridicule you under our side of the house. That is the same thing under theirs, therefore I don't think they get that reward. It's only when you surround yourself with other altruistic people under our side that you feel that positivity. But third of all, they talk about proximity. Sophie already tells you that we are the side that guarantees proximity. What that means is, even if utility is a wash and both sides help people to the same extent, we are the side that access more fulfillment because we fulfill their own burdens and mechanisms that they give to prove that. Now let's look at personal fulfillment, because they tell you that you're not going to access the life that you want and you're not going to achieve very much under our side of the house. Couple of responses to this. First of all, we already talked to you about how success is unlikely, therefore I just don't think you're getting enough money to live that perfect dream under their side. Second of all, even if you do get lots of money, the dream is always more because societal narratives push it to be unattainable. Thirdly, even if you achieve that dream is incredibly transactional and shallow. It's simply about getting more money. It is not about actually helping people. Under our side of the house, we are comfortable. They say our worst case is a £60,000 salary. I'm pretty happy getting that salary panel. The point of which means I have home, I have food, and I have food and I can feed my family. Living comfortably is fine. We can access personal fulfillment that way. I want to weigh altruism over personal fulfillment. It is a lot more deep, it is a lot more personal. Through altruism, we unlock fulfillment and we help people. So proud to oppose.
Thank you, third opposition speaker, for a fine speech. To give the summary of the debate, option applied, floor is yours. Here.
Hello, can everyone see and hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Okay, I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Many a naive political science graduate left their respectable university, having said in their statements they wanted to make a difference in the world. 15 years down the line, they find themselves sitting in McKinsey, still waiting for that good to happen. This is the future that our graduate looks into if they side with proposition. We think they fear becoming the villain that they've always fought against, and that's why they side with us. 2 themes in this speech. The first is going to look at doing good in the world, and the second is other avenues of fulfillment. First then, let's analyse doing good for the world. I think given the decision based in the motion is both ways of doing good, and we're told we're altruistically minded, it's clearly that this is the lens through which the graduate makes the decision. We think this is the primary metric for their fulfillment at this moment in time. And given you're a graduate who prioritises things like values, because you don't yet have a mortgage to pay off, as we tell you in first that those worries tend to compound later, this is what you focus on. A couple of ways that we win this. The first is, if their metric is proximity to altruistic satisfaction, as they analysed in first by getting photos from their donations, or things like sacrifice, as per their first because you sacrifice your income, these are both things which we get tenfold more than they ever will. Because you are a doctor giving vaccines and seeing the satisfaction in the moment. You're exhausted and you're working incredibly hard, but that sacrifice is all worth it because you see what you're giving. So if it's all about the satisfaction you get from doing good, then both of those metrics, by their own words, land on our side. But the second thing is, the commission of wrongs is enough to lose this clash for them. Because if I get high enough to defend Big Pharma against clients who are harmed by their products, or if I'm simply an intern doing discovery on that case, I know that I contributed to the news article I later read about families crying about the deaths of their loved ones. And the point is, as we flag, these are a well-educated graduate who is donating and connected to these charities under either side. Proposition suggested here is that they actively bury their head in the sand, and that is never a choice I'm going to make as a graduate who cares about it in the here and now. Listen, panel, we're not all purely utilitarian. We care about things like committing wrongs because we know that we cannot live with the guilt and we aspire to be better people. We're guided by these morals. The guilt of becoming what they hate is something that graduate will never stand for, and the commission of these wrongs is bad. But finally, even if you ignore this, we think that just on the maths, we end up doing the best good. Because on their side, after a million years training as a doctor, you make some money by being a high-up plastic surgeon. But at the end of the day, your absence in the public sector kills people who never get medication. Under our side, you help them. Always? No, absolutely not. But we provide charities something they're lacking, extremely qualified graduates who tend to flock to the high-paying jobs under their side. Even if it's just legal advice to homeless people seeking accommodation or working in the shelter to provide people warmth on the weekend, everything you do is positive or at least neutral. That's a satisfaction you can live with and a calculation we think stands up in the long term. The only other remaining point there here is diversified impact, but I haven't heard why this is something that matters other than you might care about a bunch of issues. But at the end of the day, it's the same pie of money or pie of effort, so the impact is the same. But you're always going to care about different issues, but we think that maybe, you can change the evening volunteering you do if you want to do something else as well. But ultimately, we think the more you chop up the pie that you're offering, you get diminishing returns and less good feeling because the impact you're having is so minimal. This wasn't something they could win on. But listen, they brought up the clash of fulfillment because they thought it allowed them to get around altruism. But unfortunately, we win here also. Because what we think is that corporations are always worse places to work than charities. That one, they're incredibly competitive because they're so saturated by qualified graduate, not charities which are trying to retain their workers. Two, they're on a hellish treadmill of always seeking money and promotion, which doesn't exist in local charities with workplaces that have other options of fulfillment, that have metrics like doing good, which they prioritize more salary. And third, you're likely to have better support because these aren't impersonal MNCs, but rather places filled with empathetic people who care about their workers because they care about others around the world. So both sides are working overnight to try and get the job done, but they're working for different ends. On our side, you get the satisfaction of knowing that you work to save lives rather than end them, and you work with people who you love and care about you in the long run. Even if your parents feel that they spend a bit much on your education, these are the values that you have now, and these are the values which you should hold true to. Opposition.
Thank you so much, Opposition Reply, for a fine speech. To close the entire debate, Opposition Reply, the floor is yours. Here.
This is going to be an angry reply. The reason for this is simple. Team Scotland's case is full of contradictions, starting from what they characterize this child to be, panel. At one end of their speech, their child is a utility maximizing machine that borrows from some benevolent AI from like a world school's final. This child can see and can access the impacts of the job they work indirectly to some sweatshop in China. However, it is this same child that suddenly stops caring about utility. It is because this same child, when they stop making a difference, they go to bed happy because they tried. We tell you to pick one. We say we win on both, but if we want to win on one, we say utility, it's a debate. That's just more certain. We're not sure what this person's moral compass is. Emotions change over a long period of time. We absolutely win on utility, and we also win on personal fulfillment because this is an altruistic-minded person, not someone whose sole responsibility in society is to be an altruist. Even Mother Teresa was selfish. We say then that your existence is causing harm. This is the only thing they clash with. And to be fair, they gave us a very smart response in second. So I'll spend a significant portion in my reply weighing down how we actually mitigated this. We mitigate this in three ways, meaning if my existence is causing harm in an MNC like McKinsey perhaps, it is an indirect harm. I am working in finance. So me being someone like a man in finance, 6'5", doing something that's like incorrect, causing harm to somebody else, that's something that's not very proximal. It takes a while for that to translate. So I can almost disassociate myself from that. Second, because it's impersonal, I will probably be replaced by a person who will do the exact same job if I leave. So I know that it's not me that's causing the harm. That harm would be caused anyway. but I'm extracting value from that harm by donating some of my money to charity, what another person would not do. That same impersonality that they claim to be is the dethroning of our case is what dethrones theirs. Third, it also happens on their side of the house. Corruption is everywhere. We said corruption was true for like charities and like non-profits and for social entrepreneurship because you borrow your money from bloodthirsty venture capitalists and you help give them returns. Like we can do this all day, panel. But also just the idea that like if you're working for a law firm, you are probably at some point going to mismanage a rape victim's case. We say that clouds all the altruism you have ever done. It makes you so proximate that it's literally dangerous for your sanity that you have, because you're still a human being. We say, by their metric of maximizing utility, we win this debate, and all their arguments are also rendered useless. First, on the idea of diversified impact. I want to donate £1,000, as they said, to Palestine. That £1,000 will feed 1,000 Palestinian children with a meal. That in of itself is impact. I can also now donate another £1,000 to some other country, to some animal farm. On their side, you spend 20 years working for that animal farm, trying to pass some niche shrimp farming policy that will help a niche group. We don't know why that is more meaningful than me donating money every month, which is a sacrifice, by the way. Nobody just gives away money every month. We say that's probably a lot more meaningful. You get a lot more utility out of it. We weigh this on certainty panel. Even on their side, if in some instances, you are going to get better impacts in terms of utility, you are guaranteed to get better impacts in terms of scale, and possibly on our side, just get any impact because you donate to a charity. It will always happen. On their side, it's so much more difficult to implement. It's that very certainty that makes this clash a wash. We say an altruism-minded person in every other sphere of our life other than altruism wins this debate on our side of the house. So proud to have won.
Thank you, Proption Reply, for a fine speech.